Oh, there we go. There's Deb. So let's see. Do you guys have access nearby or at least within earshot of your computer to a couch or a bench or a chair of some sort?
Yes.
Dory, how about you?
Yep.
Okay. Deb, do you have a couch or some sort of elevated horizontal surface in that room?
Yes.
Okay, even steps like stairs would work. So, okay, well that's good. And then part number 2, a ball of some sort.
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's
Ball. Of course, in this house, it's a street hockey ball.
Yes.
Tennis ball, baseball. Got a baseball here too. Same thing. Okay, so what we're going to do today is a whole body roll, but then we're going to focus on overhead mobility or like shoulder mobility. So we've got probably 15 minutes then of stretching and overhead mobility to help get those arms overhead. The other thing it does is help you kind of open up your chest and open up breathing muscles and things like that. So that's part of what we're going to do today too. So
Are we rolling feet today? Is that what the ball's for?
you can, yeah.
Are you doing? Oh, I just didn't know because I always have my shoes on and then, so I'm wondering, do I need to take them off for this?
That wasn't part of what I was thinking. This was going to be more
Okay.
for like shoulder stuff today.
Okay, then I will leave them
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, you can leave shoes on. So okay.
Thank you.
Well, let's start off on the floor with the roller. And as usual, we'll start from the bottom up. So, lower body today is not a second-class citizen, but we're just focusing a little bit more on upper body or shoulder mobility today. So let's just start off by rolling lower body as you normally would, working your way up. And take care of everything below your knees first. So again, you think of your whole body as one system. We want to try to roll from the bottom so that it gives us more and more room as we go up. You think about, if you have say you have a roll of dough and you want to make that roll even longer. If you start from the middle and push everything up, you're leaving some length on the table because you haven't rolled out the bottom. So we like to start from the bottom, work our way up. And let's go back of the legs. So just working your way above your knees now. We're only going to spend about 2 minutes or so on the lower body. Just rolling our way up. We shouldn't quite be to your hips yet. Let's take care of all 4 sides of your thighs first. So that's the back, outside, inside, and front. Morning, Mary. Mary, when I see that name pop up 3 or 4 minutes in, I can pretty much guarantee it's you. Glad you could make it. Mary, like I was saying in the beginning, we're going to be working on shoulder mobility today. So what you'll need is a ball, like some sort of ball, if you got it.
Lacrosse ball.
What's that?
Lacrosse ball.
Sure. Yep, that would work.
Right.
And then also within earshot of the computer, if you have like a couch or stairs or a bench or some sort of elevated surface. Is that possible?
I have a couch or this chair.
Okay, the couch would probably work better just for the width wise.
Okay.
All right, let's take 30 more seconds and then we'll be sitting on top of the roller. And remember, we want all 4 sides of your thighs to be rolled by then. All right, let's have a seat. So, level 1 would be both feet on the floor, kind of rolling around. Level 2 would be whatever side you're rolling, cross that leg up. When you cross your leg over, you put all those muscles on stretch. And when you put them on stretch, you're getting just a more intense sort of roll. Ooh. So if you find a spot that needs a little more tender, loving care, you can take a second there and just try to relax. You can get, like, if you have a spot that's really tender, you can find a way to get that to release. Feel free, if you're using a roller and you don't feel like you're getting much out of it, feel free to use the ball as well, since we have the ball on hand. These, I'm using one of those Rolga rollers, the bumpy ones, or the wavy ones. And it gets into some places that the regular flat foam roller does not. It can be pretty intense. All right, finally, let's put that roller right in the middle of your back. And we're rolling up. Let's make sure as we do this, especially today, that we aren't pulling everything forward. So as you're rolling, we shouldn't have this kind of arched up position where you're pulling your head forward and everything's rolling up. We want to try to stay neutral. So you should be looking at the ceiling. Going up as high as you can, and then coming right down to about the middle of your back. Okay, so really important today, we're gonna leave your hips on the floor. And so now I've got my side on the roller, and we're gonna be rolling out your lat, which is the big kind of flat muscle that goes down the outside of your ribs and like over your shoulder blades. So we're just going to be rolling. You shouldn't feel like you're pushing up into your armpit, right? So I've still got space in and before my armpit, but we do want to get kind of rolling down the outside of your ribs. Best way to do that is to leave your hips on the floor, and you can turn yourself forward and back and then just move the roller manually rather than trying to roll up and down. It's really hard to roll up and down. It's just a lot of pressure. All right, switch sides. So like, I'll try to get a spot and roll forward. Like I turn myself forward and backward, and then move the roller up or down an inch, depending on where you started. And then go about the same kind of thing. Okay. With the ball, 2 ways you can do this. You can go either manually, like with just sitting up and like use your hand. But another way to do it is if you're able to lay on the floor and you can kind of put the ball where it needs to be. So if you kind of draw a line here, find where the spot between where your shoulder muscle is and where your chest muscle is. Okay, so we're going to find that spot, and then we're going to come down just a little bit, kind of down and in. So now we're more in like your pec or your chest than here. So like you have a bone that's right here. That's actually your shoulder blade, part of your shoulder blade. So we want to stay off of that little point, right? So what we're going to do is like find that crease and then come in just a little bit. And then if you're using a ball, you can just kind of roll it around in there. You can also lay on the floor if it's comfortable. So you can get kind of the same thing if you're laying on the floor. The other way to do it is if you have like a vertical wall, like a door jamb, you can lean up against the door jamb. That's probably actually the easiest one. Well, I won't show it because I don't really have a good place to do it. But we're just moving this around in here, right? And then work up under your collarbone. So if it's I like this, it's a street hockey ball, or if you have an old lacrosse ball that slides, we're just gonna go, in that crease or just on the chest side of that crease here, and then you can sort of rub up and across underneath your collarbones. So let's go ahead and switch sides. Again, we're more on the chest side of that crease. You can roll out onto your shoulder, but I just think for what we're doing and for what most people need, you're better off spending time up under here. So just manually kind of moving that around, working across, kind of scrubbing right underneath your collarbone. Obviously, you could find a way to do this on a foam roller, but this is just much more, you can get into some tighter spaces. And the whole goal with this is not to like cause pain or anything like that, but the rubbing and the pressure and the rolling, if you can get it to roll, actually just helps to ease the area. So we take some tension out of the area. So if we're going to be doing mobility stuff where we want to get our arm over our head, if your chest is really tight and crunched down here, then it makes it harder to do that. Okay? So everything we do in the beginning here is setting us up for better overhead mobility. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a second and getting into things here. We're just going to go lying on your back, feet flat on the floor, knees bent. All right, and let's put your left hand on your chest, your right hand on your belly. All right, so we're going to take about 6 deep breaths here. Okay, and so as I take this breath in, I'm going to find neutral with my spine. That means I'm not pressing my low back into the ground, but I do want some contact there. So that part that usually arches up, we want some contact with the ground. Okay, and so as we take our breath, you're taking that breath, and we want to try to make your right hand rise. Your right hand is on your belly. Let's also check in and make sure. So we want to think about like someone's like stretching you out from your tailbone to the top of your head. So to get your head, almost the back of your head on the ground rather than the top, like closer to the top of your head, right? So we should be looking right up at the ceiling, chin tucked down, taking up as much length on the floor as you can from your tailbone up to the back of your head. And then we're taking those deep breaths. Let's take a second, roll your shoulder blades back and down. So we should think about shoulder blades lying flush with the floor here. The other thing that kind of helps is just to get a little help from the floor, you can take your feet and push yourself like push yourself away. So think about, your shoulder blades are on the floor, and now the floor is kind of pulling the skin of your shoulder blades or of your back down a little bit. So with that little bit of pressure down, the ground is basically pulling your shoulder blades down towards your butt. Okay, it's just a little cue and a little assistance to get your shoulder blades flat on the ground. And we go back to those breaths. See if the breaths feel any different. You might feel some tightness. Sometimes if I get into like a really tall posture like this, since my posture is not always as tall as it should be, sometimes I'll get, like in these deep breaths, I'll get some tension like in my scalenes up here, like in my neck muscles. And a lot of times that's just kind of shows that my breathing patterns are not the best, or that at least this isn't my normal breathing pattern. And so the reason we're doing this is, a lot of overhead mobility has to do with your posture in the first place. So sometimes it's not always about shoulder tightness. Sometimes it's about where your upper back, where your upper back, your thoracic spine is starting from. Okay, so you can kind of imagine your shoulder blades, if these are your shoulder blades, if they lay flush along your back and then you want to raise your arm, you've got plenty of space to do that. But if you're kind of hunched forward and it tips your shoulder blades forward, then you go to raise your arm and it's, you're kind of bumping into a barrier. So we use the breathing just to set that posture, to get good posture to start with. All right, from there, let's go to all fours. Spread those fingertips nice and wide on the floor. Press your palms flat, okay? And from here, we're just gonna do a little cat and cow, focusing mostly on upper back, right? So it's easy, I feel like, to tuck your tailbone here and really arch up. And most people have no problem getting into the cat position. But then we wanna drop everything down. Think not just about dropping your belly button, but dropping your bottom of your ribs down towards the floor. And then we're looking forward as well. And we alternate back and forth between those two, arching your back up towards the ceiling with an inhale. And with an exhale, we flip it around, pulling those shoulder blades down away from your ears. So we shouldn't end up crunched up like this, looking forward. We're gonna pull those shoulder blades down towards your waistband and extend forward. Let's just work back and forth between those two. And good, let's go to the cow position. So we're arched up, pulling that chin away from the floor. All right, and from here, we're just gonna look side to side. So we take a look over your left shoulder, or to your left shoulder, and take a look to your right shoulder. We'll just go back and forth there 3 or 4 times. Each time you look, you can exhale. So as you're going to the other side, inhale, exhale. And good. Now let's look up and down. Looking up, still staying in that cow position. I would inhale as you look down. Exhale as you look up. And good. Okay. This is where we'll find a couch, or so I'm strategically located here. Sorry, the other thing I meant to mention is a stick or a rod or a dowel of some sort. So not surprisingly, ours is a hockey stick. Does anybody not have that available? Some sort of stick or
How wide does
a
it need?
broomstick? What's that?
How wide does it need to be? Well, my tiger
Probably about
still
shoulder width.
work.
You got a buzzer down there?
I gotta run upstairs and get.
All right, so what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna put, actually, let's go palms toward you to begin with. Right. Is this an issue for anybody?
No.
We're good? We're
Yep.
good? Okay. All right, good. So holding that stick, you can do this without it, but it helps to have it. All right, and so just kneeling in front of the couch, and then you're gonna reach forward and put your elbows on the couch. Okay, so from here, you're gonna tuck that tailbone down, right? So we're not gonna be in that full cowl position where your tailbone's sticking up. You're gonna rotate down, and from here, we're gonna try to duck down below the couch. If it feels really hard to start with, move your hands in. Okay, so the more you have your hands close together, the more you're going to be able to sit down in between here. So then we can kind of play with the position of your hands. The straighter your arms, the more you're going to be able to sink into this stretch. Okay, so there's a couple things that you can play with. You can play with the width of your hands, and you can play with, how vertical they are. So the more vertical, or the more you bring them back towards your shoulders, the more stretch you're going to get. Remember, we're belly breathing here. And really what we're trying to do is sink your head down, head and shoulders down to the point where they're in line with your elbows or level with your elbows. We're going to keep your tailbone tucked. So keeping your tailbone down so that we're not using that low back extension to substitute for the overhead extension. And good, let's relax. We're gonna do the same thing one more time. Okay, we won't spend quite as long at it, but let's turn your hands over. So now you're holding with your palms facing forward. And same thing, elbows will go on the couch. And we duck down, keeping that tailbone tucked. Good, and if you didn't have a stick, we used to call this the prayer stretch. If you don't have a stick, you can also put your hands together. And what you'll notice is you get a lot more out of it because your rotator cuff isn't slowing you down there. So the more your hands angle in towards each other, the more stretch you'll get out of that. Okay, so we're gonna do something similar. But this time we're gonna use the foam roller. And there's a little bit more movement that goes on with this. So same idea. We're gonna be on all fours and just have your fingertips on top of the roller, palms facing each other. Okay, so your thumbs will end up facing up towards the ceiling here. And with this, we're just gonna roll those arms straight out. Palms are gonna face each other. So we're rolling your arms out as you sit back towards your heels. And then we'll come up with everything. So we come up away from your heels. Then we push everything back out. So this is just the straight arm version of that stretch. And as you push out, really try to keep those thumbs up towards the sky. And let's go one more time. And good. All right, the next one's called reach, roll, lift. So really similar idea to what we were just doing. We're gonna be in that, starting off in that all fours position. Then we're gonna sit back towards your heels. And so from here, we're gonna let's take your right hand. We're gonna slide it along the floor. So we reach. All right, when you reach, I'm gonna show with my left arm because that's the one facing the camera here. When you reach, think about this lengthening out, right? So now I'm reaching here. It's not necessarily crunching up next to my ear, but we're reaching out. Okay, then you're gonna roll. So we roll that palm up towards the ceiling and then lift the whole thing. All right, so if you get, your bicep up next to your ear, that's good. Okay, I'm not quite there. We'll go hand back down to the ground, flip it over, and come back. Now let's alternate arms. So we reach, we slide and lengthen that arm out along the ground. Roll your palm up, and then lift. Back down to the ground, flip the palm, come back. So we're just gonna alternate those. As you lift, you wanna think about, as you lift, you're gonna be pulling your shoulder blade back down in your back, right? So it's not just using this stuff to lift it up, okay? We wanna try to almost think about pulling your shoulder blade down so it levers everything up, if that makes sense, right? So we reach, roll, and lift. And good. Okay. So the next thing is going to be a wall slide. So we've done a lot to kind of stretch. All right. I think maybe the one other thing I would add in here would be a chest stretch just to open things up, but we've done quite a bit of rolling. If you have a wall that you can be on, that's helpful with this. We're just going to do a floor slide, a wall slide or a floor slide. And so where we want to be is if you're able to bump up against the wall, so if I was using the doors here, which I might be able to do, I'm going to try to really press my tailbone back against the doors, okay, and then sit as tall as I can here. So yeah, try to make sure that wherever you are, that your butt isn't curling, your tailbone isn't curling off of the wall. So we're sitting as tall as we can here. This is actually a nice posture check. All right, so sitting as tall as you can. If you don't have a wall, that's okay. You're just gonna sit as tall as you can. All right, from here, we're gonna go arms up in the letter Y. And then we slide down just like a wall slide and raising up. Trying to keep the back of your wrists along the wall. If the wall doesn't work for you, existing shoulder issues, that kind of thing, a floor slide is going to be useful also. So you just be, same idea, you just be lying on your back instead of having your back against the door. So we're just sliding along here, doing your best. Now, if you run into a spot where you're really crunching hard, really working hard to try to squeeze out a little bit more of the motion, we're just going to stop it there. All right, so don't worry about getting that extra inch or getting your hands all the way against the wall, because anytime we want this to be not effortless, but it shouldn't be a huge struggle, because that's kind of a signal to your body that you don't want to be there. So we want to make this as friendly as possible. Okay, last thing we're going to do here. Sorry, I don't know if I drove this point home quite enough. The on the wall slide, if you're not there with the wall slide, you'll just roll over and do the floor slide and let gravity help you, okay? All right, last part here, we're gonna start off on all fours. All right, and we're gonna do what we call a scat push-up, but really it's a top end push-up. It's just letting your shoulder blades sink together. All right, so you're going to be in all fours. You're just going to let your chest drop down towards the floor. If you had a tape measure in between your shoulder blades, you want to get to about 1 inch or 2 inches apart at that middle part of your shoulder blade. Now we're going to push through the floor, push the heels of your hands down through the floor, and push your chest away from the floor. All right, so now we're thinking about spreading those shoulder blades apart, 4 or 5 inches, and then we'll sink back down. So push up and through, and down, let those shoulder blades sink together. So if you're ready for a little bit more weight, with this, or if you feel like you get more out of it if you had weight with it, we can go ahead to the push-up position. All right, so from here, you're gonna let those shoulder blades sink, crunch down together, then push up and away from the floor. As you push up and away, remember, you're not crunching up next to your ears. You're just thinking about spreading those shoulder blades apart. Let's do about 5 more here. And good. Okay, so on shoulder mobility, a lot of times it's not necessarily, well, it can be, tightness of the muscles or the tissues in there. A lot of times it has to do with either the control of your shoulder blade, right? So if you don't have control of your shoulder blade and you go to reach up, your body's going to say like, hold on, I don't feel comfortable in this spot. All right, so that's one reason. Another reason is just general posture, right? So if if you are kind of rolled forward, your shoulder blades roll forward, and that affects like when you're trying to raise your arm, right? It's sort of like your shoulder blade can act as sort of a hood, right? So we want to pull those shoulder blades back and down, and then it clears space for that to rise up, okay? So that's all the overhead mobility stuff. If you're somebody who's has a challenge with that, then these are some good drills to do, daily, or, and you'd be amazed, I think, what you can do with just some like chest stretching and some of the breathing stuff to put you in a better spot to work on that overhead mobility. So, all right, that's all we got for today. But any questions, make sure you let me know, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
You got it, guys. We'll see you.
Yep.
Bye.